Good evening, everyone. As clerk, I will be calling to order this first Court of Revision of the Township of Wainfleet at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. This Court of Revision is being held to consider the Bridgewater Municipal Drain Report, which was previously presented to Council for information and which has received provisional readings. The first item of business for the Court of Revision is to appoint a chair from amongst the members of the court. For the record, the court is comprised of Councillor Cridland, Councillor McClellan, and Councillor Van Vliet. Councillor Terry Gilmore is an alternate member in case one of the other members is unable to perform their duties. And once again, the court was established by council resolution at its prior meeting in November. At this time, I would open the floor to nominations for the position of chair from amongst the members present. Members may nominate another member or can volunteer their own service as chair. At this time, the floor is open. Are there any nominations? I see Councillor McClellan has his hand raised. Councillor?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Van Vliet.
Thank you. Councillor Van Vliet has been nominated. Do you accept the nomination, Councillor?
I do.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
None.
If there are no other nominations, I will close the nominations, and we will require a motion to appoint the chair. Could I have a mover for a motion to appoint Councillor Van Vliet as chair of the Court of Revision respecting the Bridgewater Municipal Drain? Mover, I see Councillor McClellan. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Cridland?
Yes.
And I'll call the question. Councillor Van Vliet be appointed chair of the Court of Revision. All in favor? Councillor Cridland?
In favor?
Councillor McClellan?
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
I declare that carried. And at this point, I say congratulations to Councillor Van Vliet as chair. If she'd like to take her position, or she can work from where she is for the interest in the interests of COVID, very good. And I will turn the rest of the meeting over to Councillor Van Vliet.
Thank you, William. Okay, so we would begin this Court of Revision by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Anishinaabe and Hanishabi. That's wrong, I'm sure. Acknowledge the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. So, are there any disclosures of interest?
None.
None.
Do we have to do it recorded or no? Okay. Okay. At this point, I would call upon the Township's Drainage Superintendent to provide an overview of the Bridgewater Municipal Drain and this evening's Court of Revision.
Great, thank you. So the purpose of tonight's Court of Revision is to hear any legitimate objections or complaints regarding the schedule of assessments only. The jurisdiction of the Court of Revision is limited to 3 types of appeals. The appeal must be based on the lands or roads have been assessed too high or too low, that the lands or roads should have been assessed but has not, or that due consideration has not been given to the land's use. The Court of Revision has no authority to change the engineer's report in any way. Only the schedule of assessments may be altered. If one assessment is reduced, others must be increased. The Court of Revision has authority to pass a resolution to accept or hear appeals, even though the ratepayer has not filed the necessary appeal 10 days in advance of the hearing. A resolution will be considered under Section 7 to hear any additional appeals, if required. Section 6 of the agenda identifies the appeals that have been received by the clerk of the Township of Wainfleet within the 10-day period.
The Township has received 1 written appeal regarding the Bridgewater Municipal Drain Report and Assessment Schedule. The appeal is in the prescribed form, but is not complete as it does not specify the nature of the appeal. I would call upon Mr. Downey to please come forward to clarify his appeal. Mr. Downey, if you go to the mic and then I can address you. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say, Mr. Downey, we have your written appeal. Would you please advise the court of the reason of your appeal? Please note that the reason must fall into one of the following categories over which the court has jurisdiction. The first one is lands or roads have been assessed too high or low. Number 2 is lands or roads should have been assessed but have not. Or number 3, due to consideration, has not been given to your land's use. Mr. Downey, you have 5 minutes to address the court.
What?
You have 5 minutes to address the court.
Well, for starters, I wanted to make sure that you received everything in the extra papers that paper that I sent in with the court revision, with some of a number of the topics that I disagree with, and if you did, I would like to know.
Was that given to us at this meeting or a previous meeting?
That was when I came and gave the notice of revision to the secretary through the door that far.
Madam Chair, through you, the appeal lodged by Mr. Downey has been attached to the agenda package that was circulated to members last week. It starts on page 12 of 142 and continues through to page 14 of 142. And again, as noted by the chair, the appropriate form was used by the appellant in filing his appeal. However, he failed to identify the reason for the appeal in any of the check boxes. So that's one of the things that we're hoping to get clarification from him. He did include a fairly lengthy page of handwritten text, which has been included for everyone to review. But we're just trying to get clarification from him as to which of the categories that he's appealing. Once again, either that lands or roads are assessed too high or too low, that lands or roads that should have been assessed into the drain have not been assessed in the drain, or that due consideration was not given to the land uses occurring on his own property when the assessment schedule was developed.
Well, I am complaining about the fact that they...
Mr. Downey, could you remove your mask so we could hear you, please? Thank you.
My problem is the fact that they come along and said that they want to dig out another 2 to 3 feet out of the existing ditch that they put in there about 5 years ago, and I'm against it. They're claiming that the land was on Lot 20, which is me, that it was flooding. I've never seen any flooding on that land whatsoever. I've lived there for more than 15 years, and the ditch that is there is more than capable of draining away everything, and I don't believe that there should be any charge come to me. And I was in a meeting with Mark just last week, and he pointed out that there's in excess of a 2-meter drop between the land at the beginning of the this drain to my property, 2 meters plus another 7 foot that the ditch is already dug down, which was dug about 5 years ago without notifying me whatsoever or anything, and I have never been notified that there was going to be a drain put there, and when they thought they was going to send the bill through for me to clean it out, I objected, and they looked into it, and my property has never been classified as a municipal drain, and there has never been any notification to me that if I wanted it as a municipal drain, and I have never given the permission. And I honestly believe that if in a 2-meter drop between 2 kilometers away and my property, it has all the access of draining away the water that is going to be running off the fields. And I also have been informed that the Township of Wainfleet is dumping their water from the ditches along the 3 side roads that are west of my property into the same drain, rather than digging their own ditches to go out to the Welland River, which would be a normal way of routing that excess water when there is excess water. And I have been discussing it with a number of members of Parliament, and they are going to look into it and get back to me. And the ones that I had talked to didn't believe that there was any need for the work to be done on my property, that I shouldn't be charged.
You have about 1 minute left.
Well, I'm disputing the fact that there needs to be any excess digging across my property. There is just very little reeds that have grown up over the last 5 years along there. And that's primarily because the township has never put the work into keeping the sides clean along the edge of the property, and just allowing the weeds to grow up in there, which is not restricting any water flow anyways. And the culvert that is there is in excess of what is needed to be able to for me to cross from one field to the second. Like I don't know of any farm equipment that is 40 foot wide that has to cross over that. And this is not a large farm that has equipment like they would have in Saskatchewan or anything like that there, because it's just ridiculous to want to change a 5-year-old culvert.
We're past your 5-minute mark. I want to thank you.
I'm sorry?
We're past the 5-minute mark, so I just wanted to let you know that we're going to accept your comments. And is there any members that have any questions for Mr. Downey?
It's Donna, Councillor Cridland.
Yep. Go ahead, Councillor Cridland.
Through you, Chair, to Mr. Downey. Just before we wrap up the time, Mr. Downey, first of all, thank you for your comments. I'm not sure I'm clear yet on whether it is which one of the 3 areas that we have the power to work on tonight that your concerns fall into. So if it's possible for you to take just another 30 seconds, and perhaps the chair could just repeat them one more time for my benefit. And then Mr. Downey, if you could just land on one of those 3, that would be very helpful for our final deliberation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cridland. So it's lands or roads have been assessed too high or low. Lands or roads should have been assessed but have not. Due consideration has not been given to your land's use. So what the councillor is asking you is which one of these 3 are you appealing to?
I guess you'd call it the land, the assessment on the land is excess, because, like I said, there is no need to change a 5-year-old culvert going from one field to the other, and there is really no need to go in there and dig out a 7-foot ditch into a 9 or 10-foot ditch, when it already has a 2-meter drop from one end of the drain to my property.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cullen, does that answer your question?
Thank you, through you, Chair. That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Downey. You can have a seat. I would call upon the drainage superintendent and the engineer to speak to the appeal now.
Good evening, everyone. So from that presentation, I'm under the impression he feels he's assessed too high. And I have read his appeal. A lot of the issues he seems to be speaking about are design components. As for assessment, I can tell you he's treated no differently than anyone else on the drain. And I can provide the working sheets if the township would like that. Can you hear that better? So he's assessed similar to everyone else on the project. Yes, he is receiving a new culvert, and that is why his benefit assessment is higher. So there's a new culvert being constructed on that property. But he is treated no differently than anyone else. He is actually in the lower portion of the drain, and if you look at his outlet costs, it's lower respectively than some of the upstream landowners, because he is only paying for a smaller portion of the drain than everyone else. But the way the report stands, he is treated no differently than any other landowner on this project.
Mr. Drainage Superintendent, do you have anything to add? Mark?
Through you, Chair, no, I do not. I go with the engineer who wrote the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCullen, question?
Yes, to you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions, and one of them is, it can either be Mark or the engineer that can answer any one of these. First question, Mr. Downey's land is in fact part of municipal drain, is it not?
As it sits right now, there is a drain downstream called the Bridgewater Outlet Drain. It's an existing drain which was completed by our office. And I believe it was the last drain to go through this township.
So it is part of a municipal drain.
Yes, the portion that's not is the portion that runs through his property currently. So there's a section of drain. So there's a Bridgewater Outlet Drain which runs not quite up to the regional road. There is then existing water course from that drain to the existing Bridgewater drain, and Mark may correct me, I believe it's from the 60s. And I believe it ends at Far Road. And all this is identified on the plan. So the portion in his property we are turning into municipal drain. So this would allow the township to do maintenance on that portion. So yeah, so from Far Road down to basically the residential lots on the regional road, that's considered existing water course. The township has no authority to do any maintenance work in that section. And if you read some of Mark's earlier reports, that's the main reason this project was initiated. I believe Mark was instructed to do maintenance on the upstream portion. He had then discovered there's a portion which you can't do maintenance on, and that's where the restrictions are. And that's from Far Road to the Bridgewater Outlet Drain. And this was been an ongoing problem for quite some time. Our office made you aware of it in 2012 when we did the downstream portion. And Mark received a petition or request, I believe, through the Drainage Advisory Committee, which directed him to move forward with this project. Mr. Downey is correct that it's not municipal drain today. When he talks about maintenance in the past that the township did, well, the township had no authority to do it, and he most likely never paid for it.
So you mentioned this has been going on since the 1960s. So since the 1960s, it's been used, it's acted as a municipal drain all this time, although it technically was not a municipal drain. Is that correct?
It's treated as a water course. So with me being appointed on the, let's call it the Bridgewater drain, which is upstream portion, I have to take it to a proper outlet. It currently did not. The proper outlet was the Bridgewater outlet drain constructed a couple of years ago. This essentially is connecting the dots as well as improving the rest of the project. And there's even a portion of the drain being abandoned. So there's a bunch of work to put it all in one report, and then Mark has a new maintenance schedule going forward, and everything is, you know, up to the day's standards.
One other question. So then this new culvert that's going in, is it a larger size, diameter size, or is it just longer?
I believe it is slightly larger, and it is much longer. So the existing culvert is quite narrow, and the drain itself is quite shallow. So with deepening the drain, the pipe goes down, you need more length, and it will have proper side slopes, you know, at 2-to-1 slopes, and he'll have a safe, adequate crossing. Now, his length is no different than what other people are being provided on this drain.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm following along. So at this time, the court is required to adjudicate the appeal. What is the will of the court? So I'll list the options. One is to dismiss the appeal and uphold the engineer's original assessment schedule. Number 2 is to allow the appeal of Mr. Downey and make specific changes to the assessment schedule. Number 3. I don't know. Do we need a mover? Or should I read number 3?
3, Madam Chair. I think at this stage, the Court of Revision needs to discuss those two options. And again, the options are either to dismiss the appeal and uphold the original assessment, or to direct the engineer to make some changes to the assessment schedule, which could provide some relief that Mr. Downey is requesting. And again, I suppose the question to the drainage superintendent or to the engineer would be, if this Court of Revision did wish to make a change to Mr. Downey's assessment because there is merit in the eyes of the court to do so, what sort of impact does that have on other properties or other assessments in the drainage schedule?
So I can maybe clarify some of that. When we look at Mr. Downey's assessment, just so we're all looking at the same numbers, he was assessed $13,050 in benefit, $563 in outlet, for a total of $13,613. Now, in the back of the report, you'll see that his property is grantable, and he did receive allowances. That makes his out-of-pocket expense $7,045. These are all estimated numbers, of course. But the Court of Revision needs to understand, so if we lower one of the numbers, we are not changing the total. So somebody else has to go up, or a bunch of people have to go up. And if we change anyone that's besides the road authority, they would have to be notified, and they would have a question to why they're going up. So, you know, if someone goes down, someone else has to go up equally. The project total has to remain the same. It's $250,000. I guess that's all I can add. But usually the Court of Revision adjourns.
as indicated by the engineer, one of the options is for the court to adjourn to sort of discuss the sort of implications of either allowing or not allowing the appeal. So if you wish to do so, you can certainly adjourn to the Beamsville room for a period of time to discuss it amongst yourselves as a court. And if you require any resources to join you in the Beamsville room, for example, the drainage superintendent or other staff, you can request those staff accompany you. But now is the time for the court to consider the appeal.
Quick question. Would the Beamsville room just be the boardroom?
The boardroom, yes, I apologize.
Sorry.
I'm dealing with the last court of revision that I sat in, and it was.
Okay, we're going to adjourn to just the boardroom. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back from deliberating. Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we dismiss the appeal and uphold the engineer's original assessment schedule.
Can I get a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that, Chair.
Is there a discussion?
Through you, Madam Chair. So we have instructed, or we're going to instruct staff to look at a different payment schedule, and that will give you some time to make these payments. But so their staff is going to work on that. They'll get back to you, I'm hoping shortly after the holidays, end of January. Is that doable? Okay, so if that works, so we'll try and get that, and we'll get back to you with a payment schedule, sir. But that's the way we look at doing this. Thank you.
Okay. So we need to vote on that? A recorded vote? Counselor Quidlin?
In favor?
Counselor McClellan?
In favor?
And that's carried. So now we require a motion to adjourn. Make a mover.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
And a seconder.
I'll second that, Chair.
All in favor? Okay, so this Court of Revision is now adjourned at approximately, I don't know what time it is, 7:46 p.m. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Downey, no, thank you. The court's done. Thank you. Feel free to email us or give us a call, but we have a meeting. Thank you. Our CAO is going to get you business cards. You can give us a call if you want. Thank you.
If you still feel that I have to pay to have you go across my property, who do I send the bill to for rent to you going across my property? To the Township of Wainfleet?
Mr. Downey, the Court of Revision is completed now. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I call this regular meeting of council of the Township of Wainfleet to order, December 15th, 2020. And please stand for the national anthem. Okay, I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. Presentations. We do not have any presentations this evening. Mayor's announcements. They're fairly brief. Please note that the proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the Township website and youtube.com. In accordance with the regional bylaw, we ask all those in attendance in the gallery to wear their face covering and maintain appropriate distancing for the duration of the meeting. There's a virtual funding announcement on Thursday, December 17th at 9:15 on our YouTube channel regarding the Lakeshore Road Rehabilitation Project. I'd love for you to tune into that, please. Regional Council will meet on Thursday, December 17th at 6:30. And this will be our last regular meeting of council in 2020, and we'll be ratifying the 2021 meeting schedule this evening. I'd like to thank Kaylin Laramie for submitting the winning entry to our Township Christmas card contest this year. Her artwork appears on our Township card, and it's sent out across the region and beyond to approximately 130, 140 recipients. I went down and saw her, fantastic little girl. She did a great job. It was very enjoyable giving her the presentation and the plaque. Big smile on her face. And the Township office will be closing December 23rd and will reopen the morning of Monday, January 4th. On behalf of council, I'd like to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season. Are there any councillor remarks? Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. First, obviously, to echo the holiday wishes for myself also for this holiday season. There's a regular scheduled NPCA full board meeting this Thursday, December 17th at 9:30. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from councillors? Okay, seeing none. We'll move to the minutes of the previous meeting. Take a review of those, please. Are there any comments or corrections on the previous meetings of the minutes of the meeting held November 24th and the special meeting of council held December 1st, 2020? Okay, seeing no hands raised, announce the minutes of the regular meeting of council held November 24th, 2020 and the special meeting of council held December 1st, 2020 be adopted as circulated. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor McClellan, Councillor Van Vliet, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, and I have to do it recorded. Councillor Cridland?
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore?
Favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
And Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And those minutes are all carried. Okay, we have a delegation this evening. Stephen Seuss, Mr. Seuss, has submitted a delegation request seeking a motion of support regarding Niagara Region declaring a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction. Mr. Seuss, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your indulgence, Chair. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Perfect. So tonight I'm here to talk about the request to Niagara Regional Council to declare a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction. Now, I provided a vote tracker that I've designed to Ms. Dashwood. If you have that, I'd like that to be displayed at this point. Now, as you can see from the vote tracker, 5 municipalities have already adopted this resolution. Fort Erie, Niagara Falls, Thorold, and West Lincoln, and of course originating Niagara Falls. They've all been unanimous votes. And the reason that I'm going to the second tier municipalities, as explained last night, is that I want the call to action to region to be stronger. You know, there are over 600 residents who are homeless in this region. That number is from 2018. I've heard it's gone up. They weren't able to have a more accurate number because Niagara Counts 2020 at the region was canceled or postponed due to COVID. So I imagine it's more, but 144 of those individuals are children, and that's simply unacceptable. And, you know, in the smaller area municipalities over the years, you know, key mental health services have been lacking. And in terms of addiction, from January to September of 2020, Niagara EMS reports 475 overdoses. That's up from 335 the previous year from the months of January to June. So those numbers are scathing. And in the language when declaring a state of emergency, I'll give you the Coles Note version. It says that, you know, a state of emergency can be declared when there is an intentional or non-intentional act that has major proportions to either life or property. And I've said it in 5 municipalities, and I'll say it to my friends in Wainfleet. If this is not a state of emergency, I don't know what is, because I'm looking at the major proportions to life in this. Now, when a state of emergency is actually declared, which will be the regional responsibility, which we will ask them to do upon finishing our call to action at the second tiers, the POEC will provide a response at the province. And they're the office responsible for coordinating the emergency response. And this is going to be very important because not only does it give the municipality increased powers to set aside procurement bylaws, it also yields a response from the province. And my hope is that they will respond with funding. This is to inspire the budget deliberation. Now, when you see senior staff work at a budget, especially in something that can be as costly as social services, you always see them having to make sacrifices. You know, we have to cut this service to make room for this initiative and so forth. I want to be able to have all the support. And that's how important the procurement aspect of the debate is. More crisis lines, more staff, you know, and this is something that doesn't just affect one municipality. It affects all of us in this region, all of us in this province, and all of us in this country. You know, and when West Lincoln voted on it last night, I had said, you know, maybe you don't see as many homeless out on the street as you do in Welland or Niagara Falls or St. Catharines, but you certainly see people who are one paycheck away, who could be one paycheck away from losing their home, who have a family member who is dealing with mental health, you know, who has a family member who's dealing with addiction. You know, these issues don't discriminate and they affect us all. And so by getting all the second tier municipalities on board, we're trying to, you know, I'd like for Wainfleet to stand in support with all of us. And, you know, I've heard a lot of feedback from the residents of Wainfleet. They like to call me their adopted son, and I only live down the street from the border of Wainfleet. So, you know, I I am hopeful that Wainfleet will vote on this tonight because a lot of the residents are hoping that council does indeed. And they've told me their stories, and I've had people suggest how Wainfleet could be a big help in supporting mental health and how they can be a partner. And, I'm not here tonight asking you for $500,000. Not here tonight asking you for $5 million. I'm here simply to ask for your support, council. And, you can see this map, and our call to action is certainly growing. We haven't had a no vote yet, which I celebrate. I'd like to attribute that to more than just my political skill. I think it's because this is so meaningful, and a state of emergency is certainly an appropriate route to go on this. There have been lots of precedents of states of emergency. The NPCA, for example, as Councillor Cridlin would know, declared a state of emergency on climate. A couple First Nations reserves have declared states of emergency on clean drinking water. And we're all familiar about the COVID-19 state of emergency. And what happened when COVID-19 was declared an emergency? The province indeed responded with money. So I think I've made all the comments I need to make. I mean, this is I've been to the homeless encampment in Niagara Falls. I've listened to people's personal stories. This is an everyday thing to me. I've been a social service worker for 5 years of my life. I mean, I definitely think this is an important call to action. And I certainly want to thank you for your time. And Chair, I look forward to answering any question that your council or yourself have at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seuss. I guess first thing we'll do is just have a motion to receive that presentation made by Councillor McClellan, second by Councillor Gilmore. And I guess a recorded vote on that in favor of receiving that report. Councillor Cridland?
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore?
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
Councillor McClellan?
In favor.
Okay, so that's on the floor. Any discussion or questions now to Mr. Seuss? Okay, Councillor Cridland.
Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Seuss. You mentioned about the how this is going to work in terms of the region. So we are asking the region to declare a state of emergency, but then you made the comment about knowing that the region can then do something with it, with the province. Do you have, has there been something already at the regional council level whereby they have considered calling a state of emergency? Perhaps you've got a bit of background on that you could share. Thank you.
Yes, it's an excellent question, Councillor Cridlin, and I'm happy to go deeper into that. So, of course, I mentioned the precedents about states of emergency, and we have not yet had any formal debate at region. We've not yet had any formal presentations at region, or we've not yet had any formal delegations. But I thought it appropriate to start off at the second tier municipalities, because it's more effective for us as a cohesive unit to go to council and ask for this rather than just Steve Seuss to walk into regional council and ask for this. And so with the mechanisms of how it works is region declares the emergency because, they oversee the social service public health aspect. That's why I feel it appropriate. And then province responds to the region, because as we know, it's the regional municipality of Niagara that technically we have 13 municipalities in this region. So I think it's all about the call to action for me. But in terms of what I want to see done, a lot of it is going to rely on the Emergency Response Plan 2008 and the provincial legislation surrounding emergency management. I hope I've answered your question there, Councillor.
Okay, anything further, Councillor Cridland?
No, thank you for advocating.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Van Vliet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not really a question. I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Seuss for bringing this so much attention.
Okay, so we're at the point, would anybody be interested in making a motion on this to Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. There's a bunch of questions I'd like to ask staff about this, on what comes of this, it doesn't. So could we give this to staff and come bring it back?
Could we ask Will now? Is there anything that we could answer in regards to questions, or?
One, I don't know what we're putting here, what effect it's going to have on the region. I mean, we all know there's homeless. We know there's this. Is it, you know, how is this really going to affect any? The problem is there's a lack of funds, and where are they going to get the funds to do what we're doing? Everybody knows there's a problem. Everybody knows there's. I mean, I support this 100%, but I just don't know where the funds are going to come from, and I'm not getting enough information on this.
I think, as Mr. Seuss said, this is just a movement to have the region vote on it and forward it to the province and request provincial funding. Would not be local funding, my understanding. Is that correct? That's exactly what he's saying. So
it's all local funding. They just tax us.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's not directly. So you're making a motion that you would like to have this go to staff for staff report?
I would.
Okay, do I have a seconder on that? No? Okay, so that motion is not on the floor. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a motion? Councillor Van Vliet?
I'd just make the motion to receive it.
We've already received it.
Done that.
Sorry, I'm in a loop. I'm sorry. What here?
Does anyone wish to make a motion in respect to supporting this? Is what we're really
That's
asking.
exactly what I was doing. Sorry. Been a loopy day. I'll do that. I'll make.
Okay, so Councillor Van Vliet is making a motion to support this request by Mr. Seuss during his delegation. And so, is that goodwill for the motion? You got that? Okay, seconder for that. Councillor Gilmore will second that. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, a recorded vote in support of accepting this. Councillor Cridland?
In favor.
Councillor Gilmore?
Favor.
Councillor Van Vliet?
In favor.
Councillor McClellan?
In favor.
And I am in favor as well. So you have a unanimous vote on that. Thank you very much, Mr. Seuss.
Mr. Chair, may I just ask a question briefly?
Sure.
So the motion that everybody raised their hand up is a motion for council support from Wainfleet. Am I clear on that?
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. I thank you all so much then.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and delegate to us.
All right, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to staff reports, and we'll go first to the council meeting schedule. We'll look to Mr. Kalasa to speak to that, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, each year, at the end of each calendar year, we approach council with a proposed meeting schedule for the upcoming year. The schedule being proposed at this time is in accordance with the existing procedure bylaw of council, which provides for a meeting as early as possible in January, followed by a regular 3-week cycle of council meetings thereafter. Included as an attachment to the report is a calendar that outlines all the proposed council meeting dates, as well as certain other significant dates, including statutory holidays, various municipal conferences which are regularly attended either personally or virtually by members of council and or staff, as well as a proposed budget schedule which would see budget meetings in the first week of March and a budget adopted by prior to the middle of March. So this is being presented at this time, and staff are seeking some direction from council with respect to its adoption and or any amendments that you'd like to see made to it. Just the one other point that I would like to make is that as in the last couple of years that I've been with the township, there is a brief council recess that is scheduled to occur in the last 2 weeks of July and the first 2 weeks of August, basically giving sort of a bit of a reprieve to both council and staff for an opportunity to get away and catch up on other duties and other assignments and other activities. The caveat that we say whenever we establish that sort of 4-week lull is that if any urgent matters arise that require council attention during that period or even any other time during the year, there may be the need for special meetings to be called to deal with matters. But we're proposing this at this time, and we're here to take council's direction.
Thank you. So look to have that report received, and that council meeting schedule outlined in the report be confirmed and adopted. We have a mover and seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Councillor McClellan, Councillor Cridland, thank you, Donna. And discussion, please. Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just have a question about January 5th. Does that give staff enough time to get an agenda ready over the holiday break?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the agenda will be issued prior to the end of December, so we'll work sort of through the holidays in order to get the agenda out for that. But that's anticipated and expected, so not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
And unlike last year, I know that we made some changes to some meetings to accommodate myself, for example, on one of them when I was away. This year, the CAO and I have spoken on that, and we have chosen not to do that, so that the deputy mayor, if I'm away during a council meeting, the deputy mayor would step in and we would carry on. Changing it last year squished it too much one way or the other, and the period was too short and too much work had to get done in such a short period. It wasn't fair to staff just to accommodate one person. So we had that discussion a couple of days ago and decided that we would do it that way, so the deputy mayor would step in. Okay, we're on the floor. Moved second, had discussion. Any further discussion on that? Okay, recorded vote. Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore. In favor. Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And that schedule is adopted. Okay, and now look to Mr. Colassa to speak to the closed meeting investigator contract renewal with Local Authority Services Limited.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is an annual report as well. The Municipal Act requires councils to appoint an individual to act as an investigator in the event that any complaints are received regarding the holding of closed session meetings. Historically, the township has secured services through AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and their Local Authorities Services branch. And what we're doing here is recommending that we continue or renew that contract that we've had with them for another year. Essentially, the terms and conditions have not changed from last year, and it's simply an update, an updated contract renewal or extension.
Okay, so the motion being Administrative Staff Report ASR 44-2020 respecting closed meeting investigator contract renewal with Local Authority Services Limited be received, and that the current contract between the Township of Wainfleet and Local Authority Services Limited for closed meeting investigator services be continued for the 2021 calendar year. I have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Cridland. Thank you. And is there any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, recorded vote. Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore. In favor. Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And that is carried. Thank you. And now we'll move to the ASR 45-2020, the COVID-19 impact report, and Mr. Colassa has his report to speak to.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll try to be brief. A lot of this report is sort of a continuation of the reports that I've brought to previous council meetings. The township continues to deal with the declared state of emergency here in Wainfleet regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. What we're presenting to you at this time is, again, you'll recall at the last meeting, staff presented the sort of color-coded protocols or schedule established by the province, ranging from green to yellow to orange to red to gray. What we've done since that program was been adopted by the province is establish our own sort of protocols with the different levels of our reaction of both facility openings, conduct of in-person business, all that sort of stuff that coincides with the schedule that the province has declared. So this has been drafted by our emergency control group and tries to identify the township responses appropriate to the provincially established levels of concern, if you will. The report also notes that the Christmas market had its last Sunday event just this past weekend. It was actually quite successful, and we are currently working on plans to continue the market with the help of all the participants and Meridian Credit Union, thanks to them for all their work, and moving forward into 2021. Last month, we also reported on the Investing in Canada infrastructure program, the COVID resilience stream, and we provided specific details of the grant program and the township's $100,000 allocation that we've been provided notice of. Staff have attended a number of education sessions with the province, reviewed the criteria established by the province, and have sort of been trying to focus our own efforts on getting a grant application in to take advantage of our funding level and ensuring that the project that we have can be completed in the calendar year as quickly and efficiently as possible. There were some suggestions that we looked into about some shoreline works or some protection works, and one of the things that we found, because of some of the external approvals and some of the external engineering that might be required to undertake those works, the concern that staff had was that we may jeopardize the timelines associated with getting the work done by the end of calendar year next year. So we have identified another project. It was one I think we referenced last meeting, with respect to retrofits and fixing up, if you will, renovations to this building, as this building serves both as our EOC, as council, which is dealing with the emergency on a regular basis, as well as housing the staff that deal with the emergency in the township. And we have some desperate need for some roofing done, and that project will be able to be completed very quickly within the timelines and would certainly meet the funding criteria established by the province. Again, the hope is that if we can get this project in and approved, that frees up the money that we would have had to spend here that we can devote to other projects such as the shoreline works that were discussed, but we can do it at our own pace and in our own time frame. So and unless there's any overt objection, staff are going to try to pursue the roof project as our primary application, our single project which we're allowed to make, and get that done and call it a day. The one final thing that I wanted to add to this COVID report that was not included because at the time the report was being drafted, we were under a sort of embargo with respect to releasing the news. But Niagara Region has been successful in obtaining a grant of a donation, if you will, of face masks to assist communities and the people in those communities with dealing with COVID. The regional municipality of Niagara has coordinated with all the area municipalities, and last week the township received its allocation of face masks, and right now we have those in our custody, and we are currently working through our emergency control group with setting up a manner in which we can distribute some of those masks. Some will need to be kept for our own operations, but we will be allocating a percentage of those to the broader Wainfleet community and coming up with a means of fairly and equitably distributing them to various agencies in the community, various community groups, various businesses, and so on. So we're working on that and hope to have that moving on fairly quickly. And the only thing I can suggest is keep your eyes open, and we'll be doing news releases over the coming weeks such that we can get these out as quickly as we can. That's my report. If anyone has any questions, we'll certainly try to answer.
Okay, we have a motion that admin staff report ASR 45-2020 respecting COVID-19 impact report be received as information. Can I have a mover seconder on that? Councillor Gilmore, Councillor McClellan, and discussion. In there, you spoke about the roof being done as feeling that that's the primary need with that money, and the money that frees up can be used for other things. Is there any discussion on that, just to make sure we're clear?
Makes sense.
Okay. Okay, Donna, you're good there? Okay, move. So, no discussion, and recorded vote, please. Councillor Cridland.
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
And that is carried. And the second part, we move to the insurance program. We look for Ms. Louie to give a report on that, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So administrative staff report 46 is regarding the 2021 insurance program for the township. The insurance policy is set to cover the period of January 1st through December 31st of 2021. So the township engaged the services of Stephen White from Somerset Insurance Consulting to assist with the preparation of the RFP, as well as to analyze the proposals and provide a recommendation for consideration. The township has received 2 proposals in response to the RFP that closed just this past Friday. So the two proposals received were from BFL and Frank Cowan Company for $193,000 and $196,000 respectively. So the premiums proposed were so close that they were considered equal in terms of decision making, and the main difference between the 2 bidders was the imposed increase to the flood deductible from BFL up to $250,000 per loss, which is up from our current policy, which is $50,000. So based on the review and assessment of the proposals, it is recommended that the Township of Wainfleet accept the proposal from Frank Cowan Company for the provision of general insurance services for the period of January 1 to 2021 to January 31 or December 31, 2021, which will include volunteer and cyber coverage.
Okay, thank you. So, recommendation that admin staff report ASR 46-2020 be received, and that council direct staff to proceed with the acceptance of the proposal for the provision of general insurance services for the period of January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021 from Frank Cowan Company Limited, inclusive of cyber insurance and volunteer coverage. A mover and a seconder to put that on the floor, please. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Van Vliet. And discussion. Okay, seeing no discussion, I'll do a recorded vote. Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
And Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
And that is carried. Okay, we have correspondence items. We have 2 items of correspondence on the agenda this evening. C-267-2020 is a request from Faye Southerns to amend the discharge of firearms bylaw to prohibit hunting in vicinity of the Welland River. And is there any discussion on that correspondence? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. Just wonder who has jurisdiction, through you to the CEO, who has jurisdiction over the Welland River?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the river itself, I believe the way the municipal boundaries have been established is that the center of the river is the actual divide between Wainfleet and West Lincoln, for example. So the center of the river is actually the dividing line between the two municipalities. Does that answer the question?
Yep. So just to continue, there's a few things in the, like, I don't have a problem if we want to review, have a look at, or get a refresher for this council with that bylaw. What I don't want is to have a repeat of the meeting in 2013 that we had in the town hall, when there was a lot of confusion when we were even looking at it. There's a few things in this letter that are, I believe, already covered. Like, I'd have to see it on Niagara Navigator, but I'm pretty sure that from O'Reilly's Bridge east, there are no public accesses on our side, number one. The road either runs right against the river where there isn't a dwelling, or it's private property, number two. It's illegal to discharge a firearm within 500 feet, 152 meters of any building in Wainfleet. And it's illegal in the province of Ontario to discharge a firearm within 8 meters of the center line of a road. So the only way that you can hunt in that river in general is either on your own property on the shore or from a boat. And you can't get a boat in there from the Wainfleet side, only the Pelham side. That's irrelevant. Once you're there, you're there. But so, as I said, I'm not opposed to Mark giving us, this council, a little refresher on the bylaw. That might be beneficial, with the caveat that we, at the time we receive that refresher, we're in no way going to make any decisions. It's just a bit of an update onto where it's at, and it can sort of validate some of my issues about where the property lines are. But I'm very certain there's no public access to the shore of the river, and if you're on the road, it's against the law in Ontario, and if you're within 500 meters or feet of a building, it's against the current bylaw that we already have. So there's nowhere in that river that you can be even on the water and be safe with either of those provisions. I don't think, but I'd have to see it on a map. I'm pretty sure that that's correct. The only other thing that, you know, I found, there's reference to, quote, bullets. Well, bullets, you can't hunt waterfowl with a rifle, and that's the only thing that shoots bullets. I mean, a shotgun is they don't shoot bullets, they're pellets. But it is possible that if it's discharged in an incorrect manner, that it could rain down on a house 500 feet away. But shotguns you could shoot a shotgun at someone who's 152 meters away and you wouldn't scratch them. But that's another issue. So I think that we could have a look at it, and you know, if you want to, or we can just say that it is what it is. We already cover all the bases. So,
Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councillor Gilmore. Just wondering if at maybe at the entrance of town and maybe at O'Reilly's Road in Riverside, that there be a notice put up that states that you know, the bylaw is 152 meters from a home, and the provincial law is 8 meters from the center line of a road, and that would only be if you're beyond the 152 meters from the residence. Maybe that would clarify some of this. I kind of get that people don't like guns going off in their backyards or on Sunday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 in the morning, and all these people pay a lot of taxes, and it's not always somebody from Wainfleet that's out there hunting. So maybe they need a reminder, you know, that you come out of Niagara Falls or some other part of the peninsula and you think this is the wide open country, and I've had it happen on my own land, so I kind of get what they're saying. So.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, when I read this, I saw that this 99% falls within provincial jurisdiction, i.e. everything that Councillor Gilmore has stated, that the provincial laws in hunting basically remove anyone who should be shooting there in the first place. I don't have a problem. I think that we should, somebody can make a motion there that we refer this to staff for a report, be it the bylaw back, give us a briefing on it, and go from there. The one comment in here in the first paragraph that it go as far east down to the Pelham border and the west as far as possible. Obviously, that's going to require some, what does that really mean, west as far as possible? So it's going to have to be refined and defined. So if somebody would like to make a motion, we can send this to staff, and staff can put together a more in-depth, focused report for us, and we could go from there. Councillor McClellan.
I'll make that motion that it goes to staff, and staff get back to us with the report. Maybe they should also try and talk to the town of Pelham and the town of West Lincoln, because they're our neighbors to the north of the river. And then if there's signage or anything goes up, it goes up all the way along the river on both sides.
Okay, so just to clarify that, so the motion is to refer the report to staff for research.
Staff to talk to the...
And direction to staff outside the motion to contact Pelham, have a discussion with them, and we'll see where they're at. So, but the motion is clear that we refer it to staff for a report. I have a seconder for that, please. Councillor Van Vliet. Any discussion? Mr. CAO.
Just a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Donna. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
No, thank you very much. Through you, Mayor. Again, just from, what we're maybe expecting to see back from staff, we're not asking for restrictions at this point. We're really just, restating the jurisdiction perhaps issues for a new council. We don't know we have a problem yet. So I just, like Councillor Gilmore was saying earlier, this is not seeing a problem yet until we've looked into it more. So I guess just caution about coming back with recommendations that are at all restrictive, I think, at this point, without more discussion.
Okay, our CAO is nodding his head. He has that understanding. Okay, so recorded vote then to refer this to staff for further research and report. Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
Councillor Cridland.
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet.
In favor.
Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And that is carried. Okay, we move to C-286-2020, request from Niagara Region regarding report LNTC-C for 2020, Niagara Transit Governance Study. And Mr. Kolosik, can you speak to that, please?
Through you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, this was received by the township just the day before our last regular council meeting, and we didn't have time to get it to you on your agenda for that meeting. It is being presented as information only at this time. We are currently coordinating with the region to see if we can get some additional information regarding the implementation of this, and perhaps have a delegation from the region attend council early in the new year in order to provide more information to you regarding the scope of this regional transit governance initiative, and be able to answer any questions that you might have. So we wanted to get it in front of you as quickly as we could ahead of the new year, ahead of the Christmas vacation, with information that they will be speaking to it with additional information early in the new year.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? I know when I was reading, go ahead. I just noticed when I was reading through it, I see the amount of dollars escalating for Wainfleet starting in 2023 and arriving at the $500,000 mark-ish at 2029. So I'm very, very keen to speak to the regional people to have that discussion, because I can't ever see us paying that money for, everybody here drives, and I don't see that changing. So, Councillor Gilmore, you had a question.
I just want to move that we receive it for information until such time as they make a delegation.
Okay, seconder for that, please. Councillor Van Vliet. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. Councillor McClellan.
No, I was just gonna reiterate what you said. I kind of took our population and divided that $506,000. It works to 80 some odd dollars per person, man, woman, and child in town. I mean, we can't afford that.
Yeah,
Per year, yes, per year. I
Yeah.
mean, we'd be further off to cut a deal with Uber and let them take them to the towns they're running and subsidize that,
Yeah.
like Barry did it.
As I looked at that, you get in your car, you drive to the transportation hub, so you can get on the transportation. It's probably faster just to drive where you're going, and, so it didn't make sense. So obviously, we need to have a delegation by them, so that's been moved, seconded. Councillor Van Vliet, I think,
Yeah, I
seconded.
think she did, yes.
And no more discussion, so all in favor or opposed? Councillor McClellan.
In favor of taking it for information.
Receiving it for information and requesting a delegation. Councillor Van Vliet,
In favor.
Councillor Cridland,
In favor?
and Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
And that's carried. Okay. We have no bylaws this evening. Notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? Okay, seeing none. I guess I need a mover and a seconder to move into closed session. Council move into closed session to discuss item section 239-2D, the Municipal Act, 2001, Labor Relations or Employee Negotiations, one item, QP negotiation update, and the second item being the minutes of the closed meeting of council held November 3rd, 2020 and November 24th, 2020. Have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Gilmore, Councillor McClellan. Any discussion? And recorded vote, Councillor McClellan,
In favor.
Councillor Van Vliet,
In favor.
Councillor Cridland,
In favor?
Councillor Gilmore.
Favor.
And that is passed, and we'll now move into closed session.